In this lesson, we'll tie our stretchy systems into our primary arms. So we've also done this step for the legs. We need to lock down the position of our forearms and wrists to follow the position of our IK and FK forearm and wrist objects. Now, first things first, we can go to our main bone objects and go ahead and unfreeze their lengths. All right, so let's go ahead and start with shoulder main. We'll grab our bone tools and we'll unfreeze. We'll do the same thing for our forearm. All right, let's take care of the right side. There's one, there's two. Now, since we've already done these steps, I'm just going to go ahead and work through just one controller. That's going to be the x-axis, and then you'll know how to set up the others. And I'm doing this, of course, just to avoid repetition because the steps are that simple. All right, so starting with forearm main that pulls at this shoulder, let's go ahead and move to our motion panel. We'll find the 0 position X axis and assign our float expression to that. All right, we're now ready to create our variables. The first will be IKFK. The next will be IK underscore X. And then FKX. So we now know what to assign to each of these variables. So for FKX, let's go ahead and search for our FK forearm. So there's the global control, there's the center of gravity, we'll need to expand that. Here's our chest control, let's go ahead and expand that to get to the chest bone. From there we'll find our clavicle bone. Here it is. Let's expand that. And then from there we should be able to find our left shoulder FK bone. So we need to expand that to get to the forearm. Here it is. So we'll expand the inside of that to get to transform position 0 position X. We know that this is the correct parameter because it has been wired into. All right, so let's go ahead and choose OK. We'll now search for IKX. So if we look underneath the FK system, we should be able to find our IK shoulder. There it is. So let's go and expand the outside of that to get to the FK, or excuse me, the IK forearm. Here it is. All right, so we'll search for transform, FK subcontrol, position 0 position X. And again, we know that this is the correct parameter simply because we have an expression tied to that. We'll choose OK, and now we need to search for our IK and FK button. So we'll expand the inside of our center of gravity to get to modified object, extra controls, and here we have it, the left arm's IKFK switch. Our expression is really straightforward. We'll need to use a condition statement. So that's if, open and close parentheses, within the parentheses, that's going to be IKFK. So if that's equal to 1, or IK, put our comma, and our true statement will simply be IK underscore X. Our false is FK underscore X. Let's make sure we've spelt everything correctly. This looks good. We can now go ahead and evaluate this. So what I'll do is go ahead and copy the expression and use that for the others. Remember, when we get to the other two axes, we'll need to rename our variables. And when we get to the right arm, we essentially need to, again, just search for the right controllers to assign to these variables. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of both arms, and then we'll test them out when I come back. I'll pause the video. Okay, so it's now time to take a look at our stretchy arms. We can start with the right side. You can see that the main chain does follow. Great. How about in FK mode? Let's take a look. So you'll see that when we grab our FK wrist and start to pull that, our wrist bone follows. When we grab the forearm, everything follows properly. Very nice. So I'll go ahead and grab both controls and set them back to 0. We can now take a look at the left side. So you can see that we're in FK mode. Let's go ahead and grab the wrist, start to move that around. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and take the forearm control. All right, that's working great. So again, I'll go ahead and set that back to 0. We'll now test everything out in IK. Always want to be on the safe side. So we'll grab our control and start to stretch that, and everything works beautifully. Great stuff. All right, well, that's going to finish up our work here. So what do we have left to do? Well, we do have to create clavicle controls, and that's going to be very straightforward. We'll just use custom attributes that we tie to our chest control to drive these clavicle bones. We also need to set up some finger controls. We need to create our flexi lines. So we really only have a few more steps before we're ready to get into skinning. So in the next lesson, we'll move to our clavicle controls. Following that, we can just do a progress check just to make sure our arms look good. And then we'll move on to setting up our flexi lines. We'll then build our finger controls. At that point, we'll check to make sure all of our layers look good and overall, just to make sure that the rig is functioning properly before we move into skinning. So in the next lesson, let's go ahead and get to the clavicles.